Ayli, are you
What?
ready
Ready for what?
for today's box beatdown?
You mean the thing where we play the teams out of the box and evaluate them and not pulverizing me with actual boxes, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Welcome,
good.
everybody. And to today's episode of BBSPN, a Blood Bowl podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about teams that are coming fresh out of the box. As we talked about before, the teams that you get straight from the box nowadays are a lot different than the ones that came out with 2016. And Ayla and I were curious to see how they would stack up if we put a team from Blood Bowl 2016's box against one from Blood Bowl 2020. Specifically, the Orcs versus the Human Nobility. How about you give us just a rundown of your team comp?
Okay, so I was playing... this one was a bit weird, because you actually get almost everything in the box, so it's really just down to, do you want a fourth lineman or a second thrower? I took all four bodyguards, 2 blitzers, and then I went with 3 linemen and 2 throwers with 2 rerolls, so that leaves you with 15k. If you swap it around so that you take 1 thrower and the 4th lineman, you actually are left with 45k, which is a lot better for your dedicated fans, if that's how you want to play. I took the second thrower because it's one less piece that has armor 8 up. So, one more player that's actually going to stay on the pitch instead of die horribly when they, trip over a GFI or something.
Yeah. And on the Orc side, we have about half of what you would get with a full team of Orcs. You don't get the Troll. You don't get any Gobos. I am stuck with 2 Blitzers, 2 Orc Biggins, 2 Throwers, and 6 Linemen. This is 12 players total, so with all that extra money I had, I bought an Apothecary, and I bought 3 rerolls. That being said, I had no money left over when I bought all of these, but I thought it was best to just max it out for this game. We only played up to 1/2. When we started, how about this? Ayla, go ahead and tell me what your formation was when you saw my team setup.
Your really unorthodox setup. Yeah, he went way in the back. I think it was going to take all of your movement from a biggin to actually get into base-to-base contact on the LOS. So I deployed really hardcore on the LOS. And then I just kind of so I went with, I think I had a gap in the middle, because that's the only way the math works. Basically, because he had 3 Orc linemen, not even all together in the center of the pitch. He had them spread out on the line. So I was just able to put in groups of 2 of bodyguard lineman, bodyguard lineman, bodyguard lineman. Just all in the line of scrimmage. And then on the wings, I had, not on the line, just back a little bit, I had lineman blitzer on the left and bodyguard thrower? No. It'd be thrower blitzer on the left, bodyguard blitzer on the right, and then I had a thrower just in the back by himself to pick up the ball. Because he went so far back that I don't actually have to worry about my ball coming under pressure until turn 3. So I was able to deploy really, really aggressively.
Yeah, my defensive lineup was essentially, I knew I needed to make essentially an elf lineup where I sacrificed 3 of my linemen and kept all of my positionals in the back. I remember specifically it was 6 spaces, so I wasn't able to put my biggins at any place on the line of scrimmage if I wanted to. It was specifically to see how you would progress past the line of scrimmage when you got there, because I wasn't going to be able to match blocks with this team. So I needed to think of a strategy for where I could use a bunch of Orc linemen to my advantage. And it definitely wasn't on the line of scrimmage where they would just get beaten up. Orcs have a very high armor value, But that armor value doesn't stand so much when they are constantly being both based and blocked each turn.
Yeah, I definitely agree that you needed to deploy in the back, because I think that you needed to, because you have fewer pieces to work with, you probably need to adapt to what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is, I mean, like, that's a really important thing for playing orcs in general. I think it's more important here because you have what most people would consider a very derpy lineup.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely not something you'll see on the pitch normally, but it's kind of a lesson in you need to adapt, and often adapting doesn't look like how you expect it. I know I wanted to line up asymmetrically, but the problem with lining up asymmetrically is I don't want to give up any space as of yet. For this, during the kickoff, we had normal weather proceedings, and I believe the roll was a high kick.
Yeah, I didn't catch the ball off of that, though.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of got to punch at each other.
Yeah. The first two turns were very mundane. It was more around trying to read what Ayli was doing, and I knew that my poor linemen were on the line of scrimmage were getting pulverized, but that was okay because they didn't break. They got stunned, but they did not break. And my first move wasn't until Ayli got to, I think, 4 spaces past the line of scrimmage on my side, where I made my first step. And my first step was actually to move the biggins next to your bodyguards. And this was all in an attempt to control the line, not only your line of players, but also control where your bodyguards were.
Yeah, so that's... I'm kind of of two minds on this, because, like, that's kind of where I want the bodyguards to be. Because they're a bunch of wrestle stand firm guys. It's like, okay, well, I mean, it's really unfortunate because they're wrestle stand firm with totally average armor. So it's like they're there to take the hits, but probably only for about a couple turns before something really bad happens to them. My spleen.
And something bad did happen to them. As it turns out, even though my orcs were at half strength, essentially, they were still punching quite well. I'm going to say that the 4 casualties I did cause were way over the probabilities that you normally have against this team. Especially since that my blocks, or at least the number of blocks that I was putting out, were not as high as yours. And for good reason, because my blitzers were, I think my 3 blocks I would have is my 2 biggins to see if I can etch out a 3-die block, and then one of my blitzers would come in for a blitz and then retreat, and that's essentially how I had to roll it. Just being an orc body with an elf mind, making sure that every block I do has the least amount of danger.
Well, by about turn 4, you're making a lot more blocks, though. The linemen were getting stuck in and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely like one of those teams where you have to play very carefully, and I think it's really important that you're like rotating your blitzers in and out a lot. Because if you're gonna play orcs, like if you're just gonna find out the day of that there's a Blood Bowl league that's happening tomorrow, and you don't want to invest $100 into this game, you're gonna buy 1 box, right? Mm-hmm. So like if you grab orcs off the shelf, this is you're gonna have to do some things that you probably wouldn't normally do, like you're kind of like rotating blitzers on orcs anyway, but you have 4 of them normally, and if you're only playing with 1 box, you've got 2, so you need to really play around, the fact that these are your 2 block pieces that have movement 7. Do they have movement 7 or do they movement 6?
Well, the blitzers are the linemen.
The blitzers. I think the linemen have movement.
The blitzers are, I think, are movement 6, and the linemen are movement 5.
Yeah, so yeah, it's blitzers are movement 6, linemen and biggins are movement 5. So you have to rotate them in and out, right? Because they're your highest movement value piece. At least when you have like 4 of them, 1 or 2 can get stuck in. Cause I mean, and also like likely later on in the league they'll have a guard. So yeah, they're gonna have to get stuck in. But you've only got 2, so they're kind of doing. Well, I mean, they do have pointy ears, so I guess they are elves. But
yeah, it was an odd. I would say that in terms of a Blood Bowl match, it was very slow. More of the effort of trying to find a spot where Ayli could do a 1-turn score, and due to the fact that the bodyguards were stuck with my biggins up not way past the line of scrimmage, close to the line of scrimmage, it meant that what she had to do was move her linemen and her positionals to the other side of the pitch, and that's when things started to get a little hectic. The first like real part of the drive, you tried to do a cage next to the bodyguards, and I was able to sneak a blitzer in and knock the ball loose. Now, of course, the way I had to angle my blitzer in to knock the ball loose essentially gave you the ball again, but it wasn't impossible to get to the ball.
You made me roll dice.
Yeah. It was kind of satisfying to see Orcs still being able to break the line, even without most of their assets. The second time I knocked over the ball was a bit different, though. This is when it was starting getting closer to crunch time. You were closer. It was turn 5 or 6. You had moved your ball carrier behind everyone, and I was able to get my blitzer behind to knock it loose once more. Again, it was straight into the human nobility's hands, but that being said, I was able to knock the ball off twice, which is about 2 more times than I thought I would with this team.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing too is like by this point, I think I was down like 2 or 3 players, or something. Like I think actually by the time like the ball gets knocked loose the second time, I'm down 3 players. Like I have 8 players.
Yeah.
Which is not good. I think it was like what is it? It's like 2 linemen and a bodyguard are already gone. And I have not, and I think I've gotten like a knockout on like 1 of your throwers. I think at this point, because the throwers are basically linemen with 1 less armor right now.
Yeah, you definitely took down the 1 thrower I had on the pitch, because I know I kept the other thrower on the side simply because they had less armor value. So if there was ever an orc that was going to get injured, it would be that orc.
Yeah, so like, and this is another thing too, and I mean like, I think this kind of content is for new players who don't want to invest a ton of money, because let's be honest. Here's this new miniatures game. It costs like $100 to get, all the stuff for your team. Nobody wants to do that.
Well, yeah, but we're talking about Games Workshop games here. The putting 3 figures down on something is not foreign. But to me, Blood Bowl is the game where you play it and you don't shell out 3 figures for it. It's a game that you pick up with friends because that's who got you into it in the first place. I don't know many Warhammer shops that you're walking in and being like, hey, can I see your Blood Bowl stuff? Because I've gone to Warhammer shops. They don't have any Blood Bowl things in there.
Yeah, it's actually funny because like I do that to my local shop. I'm like, okay, what's your Blood Bowl stuff? Like, I mean, I literally came in one day and the guy's like, oh, this is when Snotlings came out. He's like, oh, are you here for the Snotlings? I'm like, actually, no, I'm skipping that. He's like, really? Yeah. Man, I got that so you could buy it. Somebody else bought it like really quickly though. That was really funny.
Of course, it's store dependent, but
yeah.
No, this is exactly what it is. Like, can we still play with the 40 now? I think it's $60 now. Good Lord. The $60 boxes for these guys, especially the boxes that they're being sold that have these unit numbers.
Games Workshop has them at 40.
40?
It's 65 for the made-to-order teams that came out recently. Okay. So the Khemri and the Amazons were 45.
Well, I stand corrected. It's still 40. That's a fair price comparatively.
Like that's actually like a price that I'm okay with. Like that's a bit. I mean, I miss when they were like, 36, or what were they, like 34 for a while? Like, that was amazing when it was a $34 game. Yeah. Oh my god.
And this being a game of assumptions, I'm assuming that you could borrow dice wherever you're going to play.
That's literally what I'm doing in Necromunda right now, because Games Workshop for GW, if you're hearing this, first off, I'm sorry that you're hearing this. Second off, they don't sell the Necromunda dice outside of the big starter boxes.
Really?
Yeah, so every time I go to Necromunda League, unpainted models because I don't have the time to paint because I'm a full-time student. And I'm just like, hey, can I borrow your dice? Like, I am, like, carpet bagging my way through this Necromunda League.
Well, but anyway, like, it's from, with this team and, the way I was playing it, when we got to turn 6 and 7 was when Ayli finally made a play for the goal. I don't think you made this play because you wanted to. I think it was out of desperation.
I think I had to at this point. So, like, if I had a couple more players, like, not even, like, all three. I mean, if I had all three, I probably wouldn't have had to do this because I could have bogged you down and stalled out another turn. But it's like, I have literally 4 orcs standing next to my next to my blitzer holding the ball. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, already, like, the line of play that got me here was dodge, blitz, roll pushing both down. No matter what, I'm spaced next to a different guy. So I have to take the both down. Dodge out of that. Mm-hmm. Stand next to my thrower, who's like the furthest thing up the pitch for some reason. And make a 2-die to protect him, and hope this works.
Yeah, the probability of Ayli getting to the scoring zone at that time was around 54%. So it could have gone either way. It was a very close drive, and that should say everything about this game so far. Is that I was able to keep it close. Now, we only played to the half, of course, so generally in a Blood Bowl game with players who have played for a couple of, almost 2 years now, right? So, with that in mind, there's usually only 1 or 2 drives, depending on what team's using.
3 years, I think.
Yeah. But it was a pretty standard Blood Bowl match, considering that I was playing essentially with a team. Like I said, that was at half strength. That being said, I think that a serious orc team nowadays won't use the troll. And I don't really recommend getting the troll. I think that getting more big-ins and more blitzers is definitely the play, instead of going for a troll afterwards.
If you're developing out of the box, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're developing out of the box, go for the blitzers and the big-ins. It's expensive, and you're going to have a bunch of redundant linemen and throwers. Because, again, it's like... Because, I mean, like, you're only missing 2 blitzers, 2 big-ins, right? So you're going to end up paying... if you just go buy another box, like, cool, I paid $42, and I'm using 4 of the miniatures out of this box.
But you can find stuff online. And
I actually have I have Troll Trader up right now, and I'm kind of, like, just digging through the old fantasy... like greenskins right now. They have 28 pages of old Warhammer Fantasy greenskins. So you don't even have to go out and buy like Age of Sigmar on the secondary market, which is probably going to be more expensive. Better sculpts, don't get me wrong. But it's like, if you really don't know, you want to upgrade your team and you don't want to buy all of that stuff, it's like, well, somebody's probably selling a couple loose Ardboys or something too, and you can actually pick up a cheap troll. Like they have a crap ton of the Battle for Skull Pass troll. So the one that's holding like the dwarf statue head over his head. I mean, the base is a little big. You might have to rebase him off of that square base, unless you're sentimental about that starter set. In which case, don't, because I think that base has unique like sculpting stuff.
Oh, it's a very rare base now. The I think is that fifth or third edition?
That's sixth edition.
Sixth edition.
Fifth was the Orcs versus Empire.
Yeah, the sixth is the end of the command sets. So having those special sculpts is actually, and I don't really invest in miniature stonks because I feel like miniatures, while they do accrue in value, are still not worth the time of just keeping them in a box and have it gather dust. But those are very rare.
Yeah, but anyway, those
people,
trolls are £9 sterling, which is a lot cheaper than the official $32 or whatever GW one.
Yeah,
I think it's 32.
To those who are aware of some of the Games Workshop's guidelines, they're not technically supposed to allow you outside sculpts for tournament play. My response to that is, I want to see a motherfucker try. And by that, I mean I want to see a store owner seriously try to do a Blood Bowl tournament and tell someone that the sculpts that they barely provide for some of these teams, they can't use. Because unless, like, in some, like, just like the NAF tournaments, where, like, unless you get made-to-order models nowadays, you're not getting the team. At least from Games Workshop.
Well, so this is kind of thing that was like most tournaments are NAF.
Yeah.
So it's not run by Games Workshop. And there's a whole bunch of weird stuff, probably with like, because of like how long Blood Bowl wasn't being used for anything, and like what NAF can and can't, like there's some, like, you wouldn't see a major outside circuit for like 40k or Age of Sigmar, right?
Yeah.
But for Blood Bowl, that's like almost all that's there. And there's all sorts of weird stuff with like the community and stuff, and like literally the lore of the NAF dying, which I haven't read the old rule books yet for lore, but I'm 90% sure GW canonized them abandoning their own specialist game. I think they canonized that. But yeah, so it's like most of it is NAF. So it's like they're not going to stop you. And if you're playing in a Games Workshop, you're using Games Workshop official like assuming that you buy like the random Battle for Skull Pass troll for like £9 sterling, which is I think like $11 or $12 US. Which is a lot better than the $30 troll that you get, or that you can get from Games Workshop. It's like, it's a GW official model.
Yeah.
So who cares? It's a bit big. The base is a bit big. I think it's like a 50mm square. But, so, you might have to rebase it. But if somebody put that on the board and said it was a troll, I'd be more like complimenting their choice of troll miniature that I would be thinking to myself, oh, that's not the official one.
Yeah. So that being said, out of the box Orcs, I think you can take it reliably. With the recent win percentages that I'm still kind of rolling over, they are statistically better than Black Orcs at the moment, at least in tournament play. Of course, we're talking about tournament play here, so who's ever playing Orcs is definitely stacking Biggins and Blitzers to their max.
And there's also like SPP thing here, you get SPP to like divvy out amongst your team and stuff. So it's a little bit of a different environment because it's like league play is going to be way different, right? Like Amazons are probably going to compete way better early on in a league than they would in a tournament where everybody has at least one tackle player out the gate because they're preparing for the one-off Amazon, in case they bump into Amazons,
or just
which are
sneaky,
still,
or just like the agility or the dodge player who will usually be carrying the ball.
I mean, really, what they're doing is they're packing a tackle player to beat the shit out of Hackflim or your stupid Underworld Gutter Runner, right? But it's like everybody's gonna have that for you, whereas like early on in a league, nobody's gonna have tackle unless you're playing against dwarves or something. So it's one of those things.
But yeah, if you see the Orc box and you're deciding on whether or not it's still relevant nowadays, I'd say it's still relevant. In fact, I might try this in the next league because it's reliable and it's unorthodox to most Orc play. And I would like to see how a team like this could actually advance over time.
Yeah, like it's really interesting because like if you're trying to develop this team, I think you develop it a lot like most orc teams do. If you don't have your next biggin by the time let's go for the worst case scenario here. You literally just don't have access to like grow this team. Like you don't have the money, you don't have the resources, or whatever. So like you literally cannot get your other blitzers and biggins. Mm-hmm. Like you cannot get a tabletop miniature for them. Some of your level ups are probably going to change. You're probably going to take guard on those biggins before you get block. You're just going to take the guard because it's like, oh my god, like I need to actually, make 2-die blocks. Like it's a much stronger contender right now, I think, because it helps you use the rest of your team. And I think I can even say the same for the blitzers. You might even just go guard on them too out the gate instead of like mighty blow. I mean, you don't have to go mighty blow on them because you can just kind of feed them touchdowns anyway. But I mean, kind of, assuming that you're not using your sure hands, which that gets into a whole other thing. But yeah.
But I feel like you have to use your sure hands. I think your blitzers and your throwers suddenly become a lot more important.
Which is a really depressing statement. Yeah. Because no orc player is thrilled about taking a thrower. Like even in short leagues, yeah, they're good. So like if you're only playing like 6 games or like 7 games or something, yeah, having the thrower is pretty useful. You're playing like a much longer thing? No.
Well, yeah, but if you're playing a much longer thing, like I would say beg, borrow, or steal an extra orc and call it a lineman instead of having 2 throwers.
Just clip off the football on the last.
Yeah, just literally remove that orc's hand.
Give him a spear or an axe or something. He's like, no, this is. He only
needs one hand to pick up the ball. Just cut off the football hand and say he's a lineman. Yeah. That's really it, and it's a cost efficient team with reliable armor that still stacks up, and I still recommend. So that being said, we are at 28 minutes. I feel like we could round off by actually just talking about what we want to mention next. Do we want to do the quarantine trial next episode?
Do we want to trial a new team? Okay, so we don't have the rerolls for them. But every Chaos team, I think, has 70k rerolls. So, like...
We can guesstimate.
Yeah, so, like, it's going to come down to, like, some math things. And figure out, we're missing the rerolls for them. And I think Chaos Chosen is 60k, I think, rerolls.
Do you want to...
Renegades is 70k. Chosen is 60k. Rerolls. Team creation.
Do you want to be the quarantine, and I'll choose a chaos team to fight against them?
Yeah, we could do that. I could play Corn.
Let's do Corn versus Chaos Chosen and see what happens.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the Nobility, though? Because Nobility were also being played out of the box.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me what your thoughts on Nobility against this team.
I think if you really just want to buy one box and you want a team that like can compete and play very well, I think you're probably going to end up taking Nobility, because Nobility are really the only team that has a super complete box set experience. I mean, that's not true. Dwarves. So I guess if your store doesn't have dwarves, and you're like, well, I don't want to feel like I'm missing out because I don't want to throw $80 at this game that I've never played before. I think Nobility are a really strong contender. Like, okay, you don't have the Ogre, but getting the Ogre down the line would be good. You don't need it to start. In fact, I actually wouldn't take it to start. And I think Nobility are a team where people are still trying to figure out like what the better setups are. Maybe, at least I haven't had people talking about it much. Even though this edition's been out for like a year. Can you believe that? A year ago, we were talking about leaks for this edition.
It's the Nurgle jump, man. Sorry, the Nurgle jump.
The Nurgle jump. Bleep that out.
It shows how I think the lack of league play and then the sudden like surge of it, like in the time that this episode's been aired, there has been 4 NAF tournaments. two of which that allows star players and two without. And there's already in the Blood Bowl community there is a chart that lists all the win probabilities for teams.
Well, okay, hold on. When you said how many games?
I believe it was 4.
So there's been about 4,500 games in the data set. I think, like, do you mean like for this month?
Yeah, in the time
Like
of this
yeah,
recording.
so this is October. Yeah, so for this month, sorry. I was just trying to figure that out. I was like, I think there's been more than 4 BB 2020 tournaments.
There's a part of me that wants to, like, that desperately wants this game to start turning into, like, Friday F&M so I can just bring Blood Bowl to
Yeah, I mean,
LCSs.
like that's because I'm gonna try to get Blood Bowl going, like, because I graduate in December, so it was like I'm gonna like try to get Blood Bowl going at my local shop, and I think I was literally gonna call it Friday Nights All Right for Fighting or something like that. I mean, like I've got to work on it, but it's like, you know, just the Friday night
Friday night thinking, big thinking.
Friday night thinking, big thinking.
But yeah, so you'd say if someone finds the Human Nobility box sitting around, to grab it?
Yeah, I would say grab it. Like, I think it's a really interesting team, and it doesn't play exactly like Bretonians, okay? And I actually know a lot of, you know, Bretonian stans who don't like this team.
I fucking hate them! Sorry. I saw the Human Nobility team when I first started, and you know what? I don't hate them as much as I just shouted, but they were a giant kick in the nuts for everyone who was hoping that Bretonians would still see some limelight.
You had, like, assembled an actual Bretonian team. Like, you had, like, bought Grail Knights.
I literally dug into the eBay ether and grabbed a 5th edition. Oh, I got a 5th and a 3rd edition Bretonian set, including Men-at-Arms, so I could make a Bretonian team, because I thought that was really into it. Now, this is before the price jump for Bretonians, I will say that. They were still pretty darn expensive. I think I spent almost $270 for them.
Oh.
But, yeah. I resold them for more, which was ironic. But I had spent so much time, and I love it. And I get why they got rid of most of the Bretonians. They're literally just BritonLore.jpg. But
BritonLore.jpg.
And I just... It kind of hurt. Like, this is supposed to be one of the few... I mean, we have Old World now coming at some point, so I guess this isn't true anymore. But it felt like Blood Bowl was the last real big facet of old school fantasy. And the thing about old school fantasy, especially as I grow older, you know, it's old school fantasy. It's kind of ridiculous, and Blood Bowl is kind of ridiculous. So it hurt to see that they won't even allow my silly British, French, whatever people back on the pitch, and they would rather keep Demons of Corn and Slan alive. Except for freaking Bretonians, they don't exist anymore. They're gone. Not even the NEF cares about them, which hurts. But
the French have been canceled.
Unit lost. But yeah, I'm gonna stop my rant on it. But the Human Ability team is good. They are worth looking into. I still think the Human team, in my opinion, is a little bit better. I don't know.
It's not even a little bit better. It's a lot of bit better. Yeah. Which that'll be an interesting one to do. Is okay. Humans are strong, but can you play them out of the box?
Can we play them out of the box? They'll be on the schedule.
Yeah, but anyway, so going off of that, so like you don't. They don't play exactly like the Bretonians, but you have a lot of very strong positionals. Like, those blitzers can develop into very strong players. I mean, yeah, okay, you don't have strength access on them, but a Blodge movement 7 player is something to be afraid of. You know, 4 bodyguards is strong. You know, those are very good guard positionals because they already have wrestle and stand firm, so you can just slap guard on them, and now all of your really crappy linemen, because they have AV8 up, so, you know, they die to a stiff breeze, or in this case, an orc that's like 4 times their height, just pulverizing them into the dirt. Now they actually get to throw 2-die blocks. Now they have a place on the line sometimes. I mean, they're still really weak. I mean, the thrower's not great, I'm not going to lie. The thrower exists to be a leader caddy and nothing else, because you never actually want to be passing with this player. Like, straight up, if the thrower levels up, give him leader, and then if he levels up again, I guess give him block. But at that point, have you been feeding your thrower touchdowns, or is he just really murderous?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like this team has potential out of the box. It's a lot harder to play, I'll be honest. Your players are fragile. And you have these positionals that, like the bodyguard, where it's like, oh man, he's got wrestle, stand firm, I'm going to slap him in front of the biggin. And then you remember that biggin, then you remember you have average armor on this guy or something. So he just keels over when he gets punched. It's like, oh, right. This guy can only hold the line for 2 or 3 blocks before something bad happens, and I need to rethink what's going on here.
You have to be prepared for when you get put on the clock with human nobility.
Yeah, because you play very fair. Yeah, no. So there's no. Okay, no. So here it is. It's the linemen. The linemen are AV8 up. Throwers, blitzers, bodyguards are 9 up. So you have. Yeah, no. That's just a bunch of old AV8. Which I think is, yeah. So for perspective, the regular human linemen on the human team have the same armor that your throwers, blitzers, and bodyguards do. So you have average armor at best. I mean, the ogre AV10 up, of course, but it's like you're probably not getting. I mean, like, you can buy the ogre. You can also just go to Troll Trader and buy literally any ogre mini and say that is your nobility ogre. Bonus points if you get like an iron gut that has like a bunch of different shields on it, because I think that would be really cool, because that's an old world flavor win, in my opinion.
Yeah. But out of the box, these are teams that you can grab that you'll get a Blood Bowl game out of. Yep, I can't say that you'll enjoy them, because that takes some time.
I can't say you'll enjoy. Actually, Troll Trader has a Blood Bowl ogre right now for £12 sterling.
Well, there you go. Go to the Brits and ask for your ogres. Well,
go to the Brits and get your ogres.
That is going to be our episode for today. Thank you all for joining us. I need to give a big shout out to our editor-in-chief, Keyframe, who is probably thinking about some sound bit to add in here, and hopefully it isn't fart reverb. And we will see you guys next time for Out of the Box. This is going to be a little segment that we're going to kind of dip back into depending on the news that comes out of Warhammer Community's pie hole. So
yeah, so I think next episode's going to be something like we'll play a game with the corn. But I think we're also just going to like talk a lot about corn. Also coming soon, team guides for Amazons. I wanted to get that out when they released the thing, when they announced the made to order, and then I looked at my schoolwork load and was like, some higher power is trying to screw me over.
We'll all look forward to it. I know I'll look forward to it because I have to listen to it. So we'll see you all then, and for next time,
take it easy.